Hi guys, Leslie here again, and this evening I want to show you how to water your plants effectively. And this is going to range right through from when you first sow seeds or take cuttings to established plants. In my garden I don't have many established plants in the ground because it's literally just paved shingle and decking. The only one that I have, which is actually my mum's, is on the side of her shed, and I don't actually water that at all. I'll go through the principle of why I don't in a little while. So to begin with, we'll start off with the seeds. Now there isn't an exact science to watering. There's little tips and tricks that you'll pick up along the way. I've done it wrong in the past. Everybody will have done it wrong, no matter who you are or where in the horticultural spectrum, world, whatever you want to call it, you are. At some point you will have done it wrong, which means that you learnt by your mistakes, and you guys will learn by your mistakes as well and know what to do differently in the future. So on a lot of the horticulture groups or allotment groups or just amateur gardening groups that I'm on Facebook, which have really gained popularity in the last couple of weeks, which I'm sure you'll understand why, people have been asking a lot of questions about watering. I've been seeing a lot of people over-watering. Now I'm guessing the reason is because you've set your seeds and you're waiting for them to germinate and you think that they're going to need watering every day. Well, actually seeds don't. They need a very minimal amount of water when you first start, just to let the seed coat, go like this because I'm imagining I've got a seed in my hand, just to let the seed coat on the outside soften up so that the, I like this word, the radicle, the first bit in the root, can pop itself out of the side of the seed, and then it will pop its little set of seed leaves up. But you don't need to give it loads and loads of water. What they really need is more heat than anything, and a constant temperature. So the soil needs to be about 10 degrees or higher at a constant rate, which is why I've been using little propagators from Aldi. Obviously there is other places you can get them. I better do that just in case I get told off for advertising. But we've been using little propagators from there on a front sort of semi-south facing windowsill inside, which means that it's been kept at a constant temperature of above 22 degrees inside, because Mum just likes to keep the house really warm, which is great for us. But I don't water them at all apart from when I first set them. Now in these propagators, which when I showed you the bottle propagator idea the other day, it creates a little biosphere. So I'm going to show you that with the one that I've brought outside, just so I can show you, because everything else is outside that I'm going to be watering. So guys, as you can see just here, this is the little propagator that I was talking about. You can't really see through the plastic. That's not because the plastic isn't see-through. That's because it's created its little biosphere. Now on the side you can see, if I tap this, you can see the water droplets coming down. Now I haven't watered that for about 4 days. The reason being, if I do that, you see it just all the water that is in there recycles. So as it gets hotter inside, you can see it evaporates. I'll pop it back on now, you can see it evaporates and creates sort of that mist on the top, which basically how clouds form in the sky. And then overnight it all runs down because it gets cooler again, and it ends up in this little reservoir in the bottom. The plants will then draw it up underneath from the soil, and as they start to photosynthesize, they'll also start to transpire, so they let water out of their leaves, which also creates the little mist on the top. So it literally just goes round and round and round in the water cycle. So I don't touch that at all. Not unless obviously it looks like it's drying out, but generally them sort of things don't really dry out. So over here you can see I've got some trailing geraniums that I've bought that I haven't potted up yet, and they're looking a little bit droopy. The soil's quite dry in there, so I'm going to show you how I water those. So down here I've got my little sprayer, and I've got quite a few little settings on here. So this one is a mist, very fine mist because you can't even see that. So that's the sort of mist that you'd use on your seed trays. So up here, I'll show you quickly, got some radishes set. They need a little bit of water, so I'm just going to mist on the top of there, just like that, just so it dampens the top down. But they're also in a, as you can see, an old dog's bed that I'm reusing, but I'll have the water underneath there so it draws up from underneath. So these ones, I'm going to click it round to that one. Where is it? Oh, which is a bit of a bigger mist, as you can see. Now I'm doing this at night time, so it doesn't matter that the water's going on the leaves because there's no sun to scorch. What I'm also going to do, as you can see, is just get closer so that it really dampens the soil and the compost inside. Like that. They're in my little greenhouse. Sorry, it's getting a bit dark, isn't it? Change around, and I'm going to use this setting, which is a bit more like a tap, as you can see. And I've got some other little seed trays in here, but these have got little trays underneath with little bits of capillary matting. So what I'm actually going to do is just fill the trays up underneath. And that's what I'm going to do with this one as well. I prefer to water like this, especially if you've got seeds on the top, because it allows the roots to go down to try and find the water. So I've got some small tomato plants in here, so I'm again using a reservoir and letting them take the water up from underneath. And I like to do that with the young plants because it stops any damage happening to the stems and the leaves on the top, because obviously they're still quite young, so they need to be supported. It also makes the roots want to drive down through the compost and find the water. Makes them a stronger plant as well. So in here, some little marigold seedlings. So again, just watering from underneath. And then if I take you this way, this one is one of my favourite plants. It's Salvia. It's called Phyllis's Fancy. I bought this in memory of my nanny who passed away a few years ago. My favourite colour was purple, and the flowers on this are purple with white bits inside. And she always used to have a lovely blue purpley vince in her hair, so it just fitted really well, and obviously her name being Phyllis too. So as you can see, when I'm watering, not watering on the plant at all, I'm going round the edges to help soak the top of the soil. Salvias don't mind quite dry conditions anyway, so it doesn't matter if the soil dries out. You can see it's got a nice lot of growth coming on the top. And then again, what I'm going to do is fill the bottom up like that, and it'll draw it up from underneath. Again, it probably doesn't seem like I'm giving them too much water. I don't really want to, because I don't want them to become reliant on me watering all the while. Again, changing the head, a bit more of a shower head. I've got a box of strawberries in here. And the strawberries don't mind it quite dry as well, but obviously when it comes to them fruiting, they're going to need more water to be able to put on the fruits, the flowers and the fruits. And again, just giving them enough so that they don't become reliant, but that they're still able to grow. So I'm starting to put on some nice leaf. You can't really see now because it's getting a bit dark, being sort of 8:30. But again, I like to water in the evenings, especially when it's hot weather like we've had. So you can see here, the lights just come on in a bit. So we've got a pot full of lavender. So I'm watering all of these from underneath now. These are all established plants. They've all been in these pots for a good few years. We could really do with feeding, and probably to be taken out, rub some of the old compost off, put some new on with a bit of slow release fertiliser in there, which would help them, which I'm going to have to do at some point. So again, I've got some chives, there's a hydrangea now coming out, a Hebe, mint, some garlic, sarcococca or sweet box, lovely weeping willow, and my cherry tree, which that also needs potting up. So you can see I've got quite a lot of work to do in the garden. But some of these don't have reservoirs underneath, so this Hebe, I'm going to water around the edge, and as you can see, This one's a good example of where watering at the surface all the while causes a lot of surface roots, which is what I mean about them not then driving down underneath. But because I don't have a reservoir big enough to go under that pot, I'm going to have to keep doing it. But it does mean that I'm going to have to top it up with compost fairly soon to cover up those roots so they don't get exposed too much to the wind and the sun and make the Hebe dry out. So as I'm going round, I'm going to talk to you about some root vegetables. Got a nice lilac in a pot here. As you can see, a lot of my pots need a bit of attention, but even being a professional gardener, as you want to call it, we never get enough time in our own gardens because we're always doing it for somebody else. But yeah, some of the root vegetables, so carrots and parsnips are the main ones. When you first sow them, if you're doing them in raised beds or if you've got them at an allotment, you want to make your trench, water your trench along the bottom. You don't really want it too deep, and then yeah, see, I really need to weed, but I'm leaving that because my guinea pigs can eat it. You wet your trench along your bottom for your carrots and your parsnips, which is just enough to allow the seeds to germinate. Cover them over and then leave them, let Mother Nature do the work. If you start watering carrots and parsnips from the top all the while, they aren't going to be driving down and you'll end up with a lot of green on the top and no root on the bottom. And obviously with those two, you're going to be wanting the root on the bottom because that's the bit that you actually want for eating. And again, you don't want them to become reliant on you either. You may look like you've got massive great carrots coming up because you can sort of scrape back the soil and see lovely big heads. Obviously it'll be a bulbous top and a little stump underneath. Make of that of what you will. So yeah, as you can see, sorry if my camera skills haven't been great tonight, but trying to do two things at once really doesn't work. I don't think women can multitask, no matter what they tell you. But yeah, always watering underneath. It's just a habit I've got into anyway, even if it is night time and there's no risk of scorching. But it means that you're not wasting water by it being on the leaves, and it goes straight down into the roots as well. So yeah, it's getting a bit dark now, guys. As you can see, I've got quite a few more pots to do. Lovely big birch tree as well, which I'm going to be watering from underneath too. I hope that helps. If there's any other questions you've got, then fire away. And just keep smiling. Thanks. Smile. So I've come back in the greenhouse because I've finished watering all the pots. I'm not actually going to water the ones in the greenhouse today because I only watered them yesterday, and these style, lovely money plant, and the not aloes at all, agave, there we go again, they're all okay. They really don't need watering that much at all. Even though the soil looks dry on the top, they're going to last for quite a while. Oh great, light's just gone off, sorry. The other things that I want to tell you about, I've got my little bit of paper written down just in case, is one way of testing is to get the feel of your pots. Now this one is really light, as you can see the compost in it is jiggling about. Now I haven't got anything in there, but when you've watered your pots and you think it's enough, just give them a little feel to see if they're light, if they're heavy, and by doing this you'll gauge when your pots need it and when they don't. The other thing that you can use is a soil testing piece of kit, also known as your finger, and just poke it right in. Because sometimes it looks dry on the top, but centimetre underneath it's still quite damp, so then just give it a little mist on the top, which will help stop the compost from completely drying out, because especially if you've been using a more of a peaty compost, which obviously we're all trying to move away from, it then becomes very, very hard to get the moisture back into the soil. If it has completely dried out, little tip for you: when you've got your watering can or whatever you're using, your milk jug, whatever, fill it up with water and just put a couple of little drops, tiny little drops of fairy liquid in it, or washing up liquid, whichever one you want to use. Give it a little shake. Now by putting that in, it helps to break the surface tension on the soil, so that when you do water it, it can then get the water into it, especially with peaty composts. Fairy up liquid, washing up liquid is really great in the gardens when used on a very minute scale. You can also use it as a spray on aphids and things like that to try and get rid of them in the garden too. Digressing a little bit. So yeah, as you can see when we're outside, I water at the base of the plants if you can't water from underneath. The clematis I didn't actually water at all because it's an established plant, so the roots have gone down far enough that they're finding their own water source. Really sorry this is a bit dark, guys, but I didn't want to be doing it in the middle of the day because that's kind of a big no-no with watering, especially with it being so hot at the moment. And that's because if you get water on the leaves or anything like that, it can end up scorching them and be even worse for the plant. But it also means that with the evaporation rates, the plants are going to have less water to take up because it's evaporating quicker than they can take it up. At the moment it's not quite hot enough to do that, but it's still best practice not to do it at dinner time anyway. Sorry this video is quite long, but there's quite a few little pointers. I'll try and put them in a little bit of a bio beside the video as well, just so that you don't get too bogged down in all the different tips and tricks that I've been giving you. And then, so yeah, as I said, no, don't water in full sun, never water in full sun unless it's completely unavoidable. If so, do it right at the base of the plant so you limit any damage to the leaves. So in the full height of summer, twice a day watering is really good. Try and do it as early as possible in the morning. This helps the plant to absorb the water during the day and stops it from losing water to the evaporation. But in the evening it also means that it's less likely to get scorched, so you can be a little less careful with your watering, but it's got more of a chance to take it up overnight when the temperatures are cooler, and gives it a bit more of a rigidity during the day. So as you can see, I like to water in the evenings, mainly because that's when I've got the time to do so. So yeah, it's all down to personal preference really. I've found my own way of watering, and people that I work with water in completely different ways as well. Once you've had a go and you've been doing it repeatedly, you'll figure out your way of watering too and know which plants need what. Best thing to do, read your care labels, read your seed packets, find out what they say. If not, ask or Google it, whatever. But just keep going, guys, and I hope you've enjoyed my little video, and yeah, thanks guys, smile.